You believe in UFOs?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Really?
Yeah.
See, I believe in there's other life forms out there,
Yeah,
but
that's what
I don't think they're coming here.
They might. Here's the thing. Right. Well, why not think it? Just because here's one thing I do believe. Most people are full of shit when it comes to like most of their stories. Like it's hard to find a person that could just tell you what happened based on what they really remember. People want to jazz things up and they want to add salt and pepper.
Yeah.
They
had
just
sex with me, did this, did that.
They don't necessarily tell you the truth. They tell you what they think is going to be an engaging story that kind of represents the truth, maybe. Especially when it's a weird thing like you saw something in the sky. What did you really see? How long did you look at it for? How many seconds was it?
Well, I mean, the problem I have with UFOs, I believe there are UFOs, but I don't think they're coming here.
Why would you say that?
Because that means first of all, if they're coming here, that means their technology is way more advanced than ours.
Right.
So why would they care if people saw them? They would show up, if I was an alien and I was that far ahead of us, I would land that bitch right in the middle of Times Square and be like, what? We are here.
But why would you do that?
But why wouldn't I?
Well,
why am I hiding in fields where nobody can see us?
Are you aware of how we treat uncontacted tribes?
Yes, to a point. But what I'm saying is, if you're that far advanced, they know. If they're coming here, they know. They're way smarter than us,
right?
Because they've traveled here,
right?
And we don't even know from far distances we can't even imagine. And they're here; they don't have to hide. It's just
do you think they do it because to hide? Or do you think maybe they do it because we can't handle it? Because we can't handle it.
Why would they care if we could handle that?
Because here's the problem. Whenever a civilization has ever encountered a civilization far superior to them, the results have always been catastrophic every single time. Every time Europeans have invaded North America, every time the Spanish visited the Mexicans, every time that this has happened, it's been a disaster. And this is human beings. If there was something that came down here from another planet and was so unbelievably sophisticated that it could travel through vast distances in space and had insurmountable, impossible technology, that we would look to it for all of our answers. It would become our new daddy. It would completely disrupt all of our governments. It would disrupt all of our religions. It would disrupt every single belief system we have. And people would fall apart. They wouldn't know what to do. Psychologically, it would be devastating. Look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, but I know most people would not be able to handle it.
I understand that. Why would they care?
Because
that's my whole point. Because they care about us.
Because it would be affecting our culture.
But they care. But why would they care?
We care about animals, bro. There's a reason why we have wildlife protection agencies. We have that because we care about animals. And animals don't even know we're a thing. Okay, if you're a deer living in the forest and you're 2 years old, you might not have ever even seen a person. You don't even know what the fuck we are. But we're trying to keep those deer alive. We spend billions of dollars every year protecting them. We do that because we care about wildlife. If we cared about a rare monkey that we found in Indonesia for some strange monkey, we would do whatever we could to make sure that monkey's populations thrived. If there was a way to help them, I mean, that's one of the reasons why zoos exist. They take rare animals, they try to breed them in captivity. But
we're also share the same Earth.
Well, then maybe they look at the universe that way, and maybe they look at civilization. I mean, our civilization's a very dangerous one because we're a bunch of semi-hairless monkeys with nuclear weapons. I mean, we're fucking nuts, bro.
Oh, yeah.
And we're obsessed with sex. We jack off to our phones. We're taking pills to keep our dick hard. We're all on speed. I mean,
we all have ADD.
I mean, we lie. We lie about shit. We lie about things that people did to us. We pretend people did worse things. We pretend that we didn't do things to people. We lie about stealing. We lie about money. We lie about all kinds of things. I mean, people are
so you're
crazy.
You're thinking aliens are thinking about all that before they come down.
Of course they would. Why wouldn't they?
Because
why wouldn't they?
I guess I'm coming from a human point of view where we don't give a shit about anything.
But here's the thing, that's not true. We do give a shit about things. That's why when you go to the Galapagos Islands, you're not allowed to take your shoes that you walked around Los Angeles and walk around the Galapagos Island. Because people have done that, and they've gotten seeds from their shoes stuck in the sand over there, or the ground over there, and then new plants grow that are invasive species. We're worried about ecosystems. We really are. That's why humans... That's where we're worried about invasive species.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
What's the most compelling modern thing that you've seen?
Oh my God, I can't talk. Unfortunately, this is my frustration, Joe, because I know what I've seen. I know what my colleagues have seen, right? And to this day, there's video that's coming in on a regular and routine basis that is very, very compelling. And if the
How do they hide stuff from the general public?
well, we have quite systems. We hide a lot
Right,
of.
but how is it getting filmed? Is any of it getting filmed by the general public, or is all this military stuff?
Let me backtrack a little bit. There's a general public that is filming stuff, but from a Department of Defense perspective, our focus now. Aero is a different story, but when I was in the government, we had to be very, very careful of something we called intelligence oversight. Back in the 60s and 70s, the U.S. intelligence apparatus, particularly in the Department of Defense, was kind of naughty. They were doing things they shouldn't do. They were spying on students and they were spying on American citizens.
You
and
don't
they were doing
say.
things. Yeah,
Crazy.
Right? Say it isn't so. So Congress passed some laws and said, okay, you can no longer do this kind of stuff on American citizens, right? You can't conduct intelligence operations on American citizens. You can't do it. It's illegal, right? So you have Executive Order 12333 and all these other rules and laws and DOD 5240.1 that all come out and say no mas. So Department of Defense is supposed to focus on military. That's it. You don't bring in U.S. persons' information and ingest them into a Department of Defense database, especially a Department of Defense intelligence database. That's a super no-no. That's called U.S. persons' information, and it's pretty much verboten. So our focus was looking specifically at military-sourced information. I was not focusing at all on what the private citizens were seeing because at the end of the day, we couldn't use it. You can't do anything with it.
And it's like you got plenty of compelling footage from the military.
Overwhelming. There's absolutely no doubt that we didn't have to look at civilian data because we had better collection sensor systems from the military that was looking at stuff and giving us better insight.
You can't tell us about, can you give us some sort of an understanding of like what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Without being...
Okay. Yeah. There is a video, high-resolution video, of I can't say what platform it was taken from. I can't say where it was taken from.
Okay.
But an object that, do you know how large an offshore oil derrick is? They're huge, right?
Yeah.
They're like almost like a small city, right? They're like one city block. They're huge. They're enormous things. There is a video that shows one of these objects underwater that goes by, the speed was calculated between 450 and 550 knots underwater, and it was bigger than the offshore derrick that it was passing because you could see in the video the offshore derrick and you could see this thing zip right by it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of, right? A lot of them are reported as being transmedium.
So that exactly. Why do we use the term UAP, right? Now it's unidentified anomalous phenomenon because it's all domain. Initially it was UFO, unidentified flying object. And for several reasons they changed the name. One of them, not just because of stigma like people think, but because the word flying object means flight. And
Right.
you have to have wings to fly. That's flight. And these things don't have wings. So that term, we're not even sure is even accurate anymore because they're not just flying. We see them underwater. We see them super high altitude. So the term was changed to unidentified aerial phenomenon. But again, that did not encompass all the observations we were seeing. So now the term UAP, I think the latest description of it is unidentified anomalous phenomenon to help describe this multi-domain or transmedium characteristic that we are beginning to see and record that these things can do. And that is, I'm going to, if I can digress for a second, because that's super important, Joe. Mm-hmm. We have transmedium vehicles, right? We have things like seaplanes, and it's a plane and it can float on water. But let's face it, a seaplane is neither a really good plane or a really good boat because it's a compromise. It's a design compromise between an object that you want to perform in the air and in the sea. And that's why it's neither really good at both. Same thing with, for example, the space shuttle. It goes out into space and it can glide down, but it's not a very good airplane, comes down like a brick,
Right.
Because there's design compromises and performance compromises. But what we are seeing doesn't have any of that attributable compromise. It's not, these objects aren't slowing down. They're not changing their performance capabilities. They can do the same thing that we're seeing in the air and possibly in space and even underwater. So that is a fundamentally different type of technology than we are used to dealing with.
The assumption that they are doing something with space, time, and gravity around them, rather than using something like a jet propulsion engine that blasts fire out the back and it makes it go fast forward.
Right.
That they're doing something that alters the gravity around them. And
So-
that's why they can go through everything.
Yeah, we had some of the best scientists on the team, folks like Dr. Hal Puthoff and some other folks that I'm not allowed to say their names, Dr. Eric Davis and some others, that were doing the calculations, mathematical calculations on how this is possible. And the consensus was by the scientists, not me, because I'm not a physics expert, I'm not a astrophysicist. They were saying that, so let me back up here. Initially, the government for years was trying to identify the different exotic technologies that could explain the different performance characteristics. And it was during the ATIP years that the scientists had this consensus that if you had one type of technology, if you could do one thing, all these other observables now become possible. Kind of think of like a unifying theory. And so if you had the ability to create this bubble around you in a localized area that insulated you from the effects of Earth's gravity. Now, what is gravity? People think that, when I drop my glasses, that's gravity. That's not gravity. That's an effect of gravity. Gravity is the warping of space-time. And that's important because people you hear the term thrown around a lot, but they don't realize that space and time are actually connected. They are one and the same. They're opposite sides, if you will, of the same coin. And so you can't have one without the other. And so you have this ability to create a bubble around you that insulates you from the warping of space-time, let's say in this case Earth's gravity or something like that. Then the way you experience time inside that bubble is perhaps fundamentally different than the way you might experience space-time outside that bubble, because you're not subject to the effects of gravity, which would explain potentially why things don't need wings and why they don't need propulsion systems like that, right? So it's a completely different way of looking at how we understand physics and how we, as humans, move about. Everything we do is fundamentally force equals mass times acceleration. Right? F equals ma, right? Mass times acceleration, and you get force. This may be something a little bit different. This is not using, again, conventional thrust, or if I Newtonian, right? If I push this way, I have an equal and opposite reaction that way, right? That's how.
Are there any theories as to how it's accomplished?
There is. Actually, Dr. Hal Puthoff about 3 years ago gave a speech on this, a very interesting lecture about this technology. And if you ever have the chance, you really should have him on, because he's an incredible human being. He's also the one who helped start the government's remote viewing program and a bunch of other stuff for the government. He's been involved in a lot of our nation's probably most classified efforts. But he was working with us on ATIP as one of our scientists. And he gave a lecture about 3 years ago to some other scientists about the specifics on how this is possible. I am not a scientist, so I'm definitely not going to speak on behalf of Hal Puthoff, because I'm sure I will muck it up. But I do recall a time when he came into our skiff and gave us about a 3-hour lecture on this unifying theory. And at that moment, it was very much for us the epiphany that a lot of us had been searching for. He's like, look, at the end of the day, this is how it's possible. And that was kind of this, wow. So it's really not.
Can you give us a
voodoo
moron's
magic.
view of how it's possible?
Yeah.
Someone like me?
Yeah, well, I'm in that category, Joe. So
We're speaking the same language.
Yeah, single syllable grunts, right? Yeah. So you have an object like this cup on your table, and you want it to be insulated from the effects of Earth's gravity. So you create this bubble artificially using a certain energetic source at a certain frequency, and it interacts with certain material, certain metamaterial. And I got to be careful exactly what I say, but certain skin of the craft, this aluminum via the cup here, and all of a sudden, whoop, you have this bubble around you where what you see on the outside is not necessarily what you see on the inside. In fact, may I do a little more drawing for you? Okay, and forgive me, I'm not an artist, so I'm going to do this upside down for you, and then I'm going to kind of scoot this just a little here. All right, let's do this. So unfortunately, I know your audience can't see this, but actually, it's
That's
probably
okay.
good.
Some people can. There's a video form of it.
Well,
Well, I'm sure this will get on. It'll be on YouTube as well.
It's probably good that they don't, because I'm not an artist. But
Okay.
let's say this is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional space.
Okay.
And in essence,
So what you've done is essentially you created a three-dimensional looking grid stacked. It looked like stacked boxes on top of each other.
yeah, right. And so you have this, you have location A and location B. And let's say I go from Los Angeles to Baltimore.
Okay.
And it takes me 5 hours to fly at 500 miles an hour. That's a function of distance over time. And in essence, you can mark that linearly like this. So I fly, it takes me 5 hours, there I am.
Okay.
If you had the ability to compress space-time, and not a lot, just a little bit, and you were able to allow these points to be a little closer together, now in essence, what took you, let's say, 5 hours and 500 miles an hour to do it, you can do it in 1 hour, and you can do it in much less time. But to the observer outside, because we're still in the same universe, we would see something like that. We would see this incredible hopscotching ability to, if you will, take a shortcut through space-time. And so what would appear to be instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocity, and other things, now becomes a reality. And so that is fundamentally what the scientists had discovered. And so it seems like science fiction, but when you understand the mathematics and some of the theorem that they've proposed, a lot of these other observables become possible.
Well, these are essentially just theoretical explanations of how these things are moving.
Again, I'm not a scientist.
I
I want to be
understand.
very careful. I don't want to misrepresent anything. There's a whole lot of other stuff that if you can do that, all of a sudden now makes sense and may describe the observations that people are seeing and why they're kind of hard to see and they seem obscure.
Right.
And so I think from a governmental perspective, that it was kind of a revelatory moment for the folks in our program.
Realize one of the reasons why these things are weird looking is because they're creating. You want a light?
Do you mind?
Yeah, take this.
Thank you.
So the back thing, the other side. Push that down. There you go. Bam.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So how much of this is theoretical and how much of this is observed from recovered vehicles?
I'm not allowed to talk about what the government may or may not have in its possession, other than that so I went through a very lengthy Pentagon review process. Recently, I wrote, I won't talk about it here, but I wrote something. And I had to go through Pentagon to have a review process. And it took almost a year. In this thing I wrote, I talk about up to the part I can talk about. And they approved for me to talk about up to that point. When it comes to what the government may or may not have in its possession, all I can simply say is that there is very compelling evidence to suggest that the U.S. government is in absolute possession of exotic material that is not made by humans. Now, beyond that, I can't really expound upon. I haven't been given permission to talk about it. But what I can say is what I've already said for the record, which has been approved by the Pentagon. I won't get in trouble by saying it. Is that we are there's very compelling data to suggest that we are in possession of.
Why is the Pentagon teasing us? Why do they tell you? Why are they allowing you to say we are in possession of something that was not made by human beings, but not allowed to elaborate, not allowed to show these very compelling videos that you're talking about that you've seen?
Well, two reasons. I don't think they have a choice. I think with now the introduction of cell phones and Ring cameras, the cat's out of the bag. It's the worst kept secret at this point. Two, there is a faction, unlike before in the Cold War, I believe there is a faction of people inside the government that do want this conversation to occur. But equally, there's still a faction of people that are very mad with me.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
You know, Jackie Gleason supposedly had an encounter with Nixon. That Nixon and Gleason were buddies, and they were drinking.
Really?
And
I did not know
It's a
this.
famous story that's disputed, but apparently,
Let's go with it, though.
Let's go with it.
Yeah.
Gleason apparently had said that Jackie Gleason and him were drinking, and Nixon was like, "You want to see a fucking UFO?"
No way.
Yeah, and he flew him to see wreckage, and they had frozen biological entities, and they got a chance to see these things that they had frozen.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So that was like early 70s at some
Yeah,
point.
something like that. And
That's
Jackie
crazy.
wound up having a house built in the shape of a UFO afterwards.
No
Yeah,
way.
that was for sale as recently as I think like a decade ago. See if you can find that
Where?
house.
In LA or something?
No, it's in upstate New York. But the house looks like a fucking UFO.
No
Like he had a
way.
UFO house built. Yeah, Jackie Gleason apparently was obsessed with UFOs after the fact.
No.
So this
What?
Is, yeah.
that
Jackie
looks
Gleason's
like a
UFO
cabin.
inspired upstate New York spaceship house.
No way.
Yeah. That was
Doesn't
his
that look
house.
like, and that picture makes it look bigger. Okay, that's serious.
Yeah,
oh,
it's
wow.
a fucking.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that's two different buildings.
Oh,
Oh, he has
the
more
first
than
one's
one
like
of
the
them?
guest house.
Top, yeah. It's
Oh,
like
I see.
a small building. And
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, that's the
fucking
guest house.
thing.
The other one.
Wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So Jackie Gleason became a UFO freak.
Man, I'm gonna do that after this. That's a pretty cool looking house.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. Oh
Yeah.
my god,
Oh,
I
wow,
wish it
look
was.
at that.
I wonder if it's still for sale.
That's
Entrance to
amazing.
the mothership. Woo!
I'm gonna talk to my wife about this when I get
Yeah.
home. This is serious right here. Well, now you have this SIG Spear. So there's a lot of UFO stuff on this SIG Spear. So maybe this should be reserved for taking out the aliens when they come.
I don't want to take them out.
Well, if they attack you.
Listen, I don't think they're going to
attack.
attack.
If they attack.
If they do attack, I think they could render you useless almost instantaneously.
But them too. They're kind of like, why wouldn't they just sit back and watch?
I
Like,
think they're if
that's right by.
If I had a guess, I mean, just the wildest of speculations, I would guess that every civilization reaches a point of technological proficiency when they're also dealing with these territorial, warring tribes
Yeah.
where they have the ability to literally destroy the earth. And that if this is a natural course of progression for intelligent beings, they get to this point, there's a transition where it gets very dangerous. And if I was from another planet and I was monitoring this, I would be there to make sure that they don't launch. That they don't, and that's the theme of the Mothership Comedy Club, is that the rooms are called Fat Man and Little Boy. And the reason why the rooms are called Fat Man and Little Boy is because that is a specific moment in UFO folklore when the aliens start arriving. After the detonation of those bombs, that's when you start seeing this massive uptick in sightings.
Really?
Yes. And interactions with fighter pilots and these different military bases that have nuclear programs where the bases get shut down and all the power goes off. Yeah, there's like,
That's wild.
yeah, it's heavy stuff. Because if you think that they are watching, that would make the most sense. That they see that we have nuclear power, we have the ability to blow ourselves up, and we detonate two
we did it.
bombs, and then they're like, okay, let's go monitor these assholes.
Let's go make sure that they don't do anything that's going to affect the rest of the
only
universe.
one country right now has them. Let's fucking
No
specifically
way.
concentrate on them. And then they have sightings in the Soviet Union when the Soviet Union has the capabilities. And
No
yeah,
kidding.
there's a ton of documented sightings and these encounters that happen. And then
So
there's
beforehand,
also
there's not really anything.
very little, very little,
Really?
very well. I'm sure they've probably been visiting us if they do visit us.
Yeah.
I would imagine they've been visiting us forever. Like, look, they've got engines. Look, they've got guns. Look, they've got this. You know, it'd be fascinating to watch. Like, look at these territorial apes with nuclear weapons. Like, it's the time to watch.
Right now, they're just sitting back,
Yeah.
popping that popcorn and being like, oh, man,
Well,
it's
as
getting interesting now.
We're getting closer and closer to our fucking inevitable demise. Like, that's when the sightings are ramped up to the point where the Pentagon has to start talking about it.
And they are.
Yes.
In front of us.
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
But no one pays attention.
No one pays attention.
It's like, let's go back to, TikTok and Instagram.
Well,
and
I mean, they kind of pay attention. There's nothing that you could fucking put your fork into.
Right.
You know, it's like, what is
Exactly.
it? You know, like, and why are they telling us about this? That's also, there's a lot of cynicism when it comes to like, why is the government telling us about UFOs?
Like a distraction, you mean?
But what is it? Like, what are they telling us because they really have this information and they want to slowly leak it out because this is an inevitable contact moment and they want to prepare civilization? Or is it just horseshit? Is it just they're distracting us and this is how they, institute this drone program where they have this, anti-gravity device and they can move at insane rates of speed? I don't know. I mean, it's just guesswork.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You get directly from these guys who've actually seen it, experienced it.
Yeah.
Hang out and talk with them for a little bit. Oh,
I've talked to quite a few now, that have seen these things and had these experiences. But the Bob Lazar one is uniquely compelling.
All right.
Uniquely compelling because Bob is without a doubt a brilliant guy, and he was a legitimate propulsions expert who it's been proven he worked at Los Alamos Labs, and they tried to hide that. They tried to lie about that and say that he wasn't, but he's on the employee roster. He has an intimate knowledge of the facilities. They took him. George Knapp took him on a tour of Los Alamos. He knew where everything was. He knew the people there. They knew him.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild shit, man. Because if he's telling the truth, he says is not one that they've recovered, but multiple, and that one of them they think is really old, and they got it from an archaeological dig. They think that they recovered this thing in the ground.
That's stuff. I mean, you see that in movies, and we all watch it in movies and think it's science fiction, but there's a lot of science fiction that has come to fruition, from submarines to going to the moon to also space travel in general, flying.
Sure, all of it. Every we're just Buck Rogers.
No big deal.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Now, I'm not believe it or not, I'm not into UFOs. I don't follow stories or,
Even after your experiences?
No, I'm fascinated with the technology, and it irks me like every night I go to sleep that, that it was my own doing, essentially, that prevented me from continuing on in the project. I mean, it's that to be on that cutting edge of technology is so alluring to me.
Right.
But by the same token, I don't really care that there's aliens or where they come from. I mean, the prize is the technology, and that's what I'm fascinated by. But so I don't listen to UFO stories and that sort of thing. But George Knapp is, he's the guy that has the contacts and tries to thread everything together. And what he recently told me is he found, I don't know, it was either documentation or people that he spoke to. It's that the existence of this project, the project that I was on, it's something that they seem to take out every 8 or 10 years.
So that's a very specific and this is actually, this is the first time I'll be very clear with people about it. It's a big topic of conversation right now. It's called the Wilson Memo. You can look it up. Admiral Wilson met with a scientist who's actually was featured in one of my films. Everybody has been debating whether or not this document of a conversation with a sitting admiral at the time is a real document. It's an actual conversation that happened, and this document is real. Everybody wants to know. The world is going crazy right now in the UFO world. I'll tell you straight up right now, I'm in the position to know, and it is a real document, that it is real. So the conversation you read in that conversation was had. I can't attest to every...
You're not being very clear.
Sure.
Please.
So there was a document that is circulating right now that is really big. It's going around everywhere. People are asking and wondering.
What is this document?
It's called the Wilson Memo, is how you can find it online, or the Wilson Leak.
There it is. Jimmy's got it. The Wilson Memorandum. Use of human volunteers.
No.
I just wanna make sure that was it, yeah.
No, that's not it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Admiral Wilson meets with this scientist, and they have this discussion, oddly enough, at special projects at EG&G. And if I remember, the document is from 2001. I'm telling everybody right now, it's real. And we'll see. My history is pretty good with saying if something's real or not, right? So here we go. The document comes out. They meet at EG&G special projects. In 1989, they stumble into a problem. This happens. They put the technology away, and then they bring it back out and see if material science has caught up and if they can make any progress. So this document kind of talks about this process. The big thing I get from it, and a lot of it's vindicating to Bob, and one of the things that's vindicating, besides the EG&G thing, is that private industry, so this guy's an admiral, and he says, I found out about your SAP, your Special Access Program. I need to know about it. And he's going to a private part of industry, and he is denied access. And he says, I should be running this program. And they were able to deny him access. So I think the takeaway here is, check it out. I'm telling you that is an actual correct, that is a leak. Now, everything said in that document, I don't know.
What are you talking about? What is said in that document?
It's between a scientist and an admiral that are sitting, and they're having a meeting, and they're talking about the search for the UFO subject, the search to get special access program access to all of these different things like reverse engineering programs. So in this document, they talk about it. I believe that this document, the person that went was employed by Robert Bigelow, one of the guys that has a couple orbiting satellites and all that stuff.
He's the guy at Skinwalker Ranch.
No, he's not. He was the guy that owned
Used
Skinwalker.
to own it. Okay.
Yeah, he used to own it. There's a new owner, and I interviewed him for my other film, but there's a new owner, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that soon. But there's stuff that you'll be hearing about Skinwalker Ranch soon because there's a new owner. Anyway, the whole point of this insertion here is just that document kind of validates a lot of this idea Bob just said, that they make a little progress, then they can't go anywhere. They tuck it away, and then they bring it back out, 10 years later and start working on it. What is the limiting factor? I think Bob should speak on this, but it's the material science.
Yeah, it's really where physics. So I can see them doing that. I mean, I didn't have any information on that, but I think what George uncovered is probably accurate, that, we try and do what we can, and once we reach a roadblock going, we really can't figure it out, it's just friggin' put the thing away, wait for science to catch up, and, a decade later, let's take the project out again and see, all right, now where can we go?
But there's got to be someone who remains informed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you've got your scientists like you and Barry. You got your people that you compartmentalize. You got these people working on this
there
project.
has to be people that know everything.
You've got security, and then someone's going to be on the outside saying, hey, we need people to guard this building. Don't let anybody in for 10 years.
I think a lot of that is private industry, and I think that's how they keep it. Yeah, I think that's how they because the government is just so leaky. I think that's kind of what they're doing.
That's what the document proves. You just articulated that it is in control of private industry.
What? Some aerospace company? I
don't know.
Yeah, they wouldn't. The guy admiral wouldn't name it in the car in the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So they still have these things supposedly.
I would guess. I mean, I don't have any information on that.
Have you ever asked anyone that has any inkling of any idea of where they got them or how they got them?
No, but something must have been said to me from Barry, but it was just too long ago, and I can't quite remember what was said, but it just left a seed in my mind. I think at least one of them was part of an archaeological dig. So it's old. At least one of them is old. I don't know if it was the one I worked on, but I remember something to do with an archaeological dig.
Well,
so that means it's not just old; it's ancient. Yeah,
right.
As all of it would.
Yeah, that tripped me out when he did that for the first time.
Yeah, that's a right there. Just a couple of dudes with some brushes looking for a Tyrannosaurus Rex bone. They hit metal.
And when did they find it? That they have 9 of them.
Yeah. Well, and how could we have not heard about that? What about the guys with the brushes? How could you uncover something like that? And
Joe's newspaper at home does. I mean, they said it on that first.
Oh, you mean the Roswell Daily Record?
Yeah, the one you told me.
Yeah, I have a cover. What is this here, Jamie?
This is the document, but I had to do some digging to find it.
Yes, it's just kind of. Yeah, so this is where they meet at EG&G, and this is Admiral Wilson, and there's a lot more coming out. Now, I want to be clear, George didn't put this out. He didn't leak this out to anybody. This is, I can tell you how
Who recorded this conversation?
So this is an employee of, at the time, Robert Bigelow.
And this is...
Remember when he had that government contract called OSAP, the world all knows about now, and he had NIDS that studied the ranch. So that $22 million, everybody is saying it was for ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The $22 million was for OSAP that was pushed through Congress, 3 congressmen, right, an astronaut. It was pushed through. And that's what that $22 million, by the way, they spend more money on Viagra every year than they do studying UFOs, if it was just this program, which I think is funny.
They probably a lot more money from Viagra than from UFOs, too.
Well, you know how it seeds into population. But anyway, this program this is what was the mother program. So it got the 22 million, and really it was to study Skinwalker Ranch. Oddly enough, that 22 million all was inspired by the phenomenon they were seeing at Skinwalker Ranch, because the scientists, they're seeing vehicles come through like a space in the sky.
Yeah, I went there with Duncan.
Yeah,
we interviewed a bunch of people that seemed full of shit, but a couple that didn't. It was very, very interesting.
Totally. And if you look a lot of time in the area, I'm not talking about those stories. I'm saying there were scientists hired by the government, right, through Bigelow to study the ranch because they thought it was important. And, whatever. The point is that 22 million was to study that. Then we have ATIP, which is like an auxiliary kind of program of military sightings, like Commander Fravers and that sort of thing. This document is just one of those things that has now come forward that through the Bigelow studies, it was government funded, and then it was personally funded and then government funded. It's just one of those things that kind of shakes you, because you got this military guy who can't get access because of the private industry that's holding these non-terrestrial materials, that they can't study it. So that's the claim right now. Give it some time, let people dig more into this. It's fascinating, man.
Hello, freak bitches.
The community thing, I think, is like a key thing.
Yes.
I recently did a debunk of a UFO that the Chilean Navy supposedly saw.
What was that? I'm not aware of that one.
It was like this this thing. There was a Chilean Navy helicopter had this infrared camera, and they saw this two black dots off in the distance that looked like a weird thing, like a figure eight type thing flying away, and then it started like spraying out this stuff, and they couldn't figure what it was, and they chased after it, but it was too fast and it got away from them. And the Chilean government has an official UFO investigation team, and they set them on it, and they spent 2 years figuring out what it was, and they couldn't figure out what it was, and so they said it's a confirmed unidentified object. And then they published their findings, and then I and some other people on Metabunk looked at it, and we figured out it was actually just a plane flying away from the helicopter, leaving some contrails behind, and we actually figured out exactly which plane it was. And so this got a bit of play online, and I was on like Huffington Post and things like that. And some UFO enthusiasts started talking to me, and I joined their groups, and I joined a few other groups, and then I found myself in this kind of weird corner of the internet where everybody believes in UFOs unquestioningly, and they're always putting up these photographs of things, and people are like, "Oh, great capture, dude," and it's just something like a street light or something. But they think they have this confirmation bias, this group confirmation bias, where they can't disagree with someone, and they know they're in a safe space, so they can put out whatever theory that they like, and they know that people will be like, they're just very supportive of them.
Yeah.
Like, one that happened a couple of days ago, some woman put up a picture of a strange light that she said was in the sky. And so I downloaded the picture and I boosted the brightness, and I saw it was actually a reflection of something in a security light on a porch. And you could see it was like there was trees behind it, and it was a security light, and there's this reflection. So I posted that, and then I started getting called like a shill for pointing this out.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people who like said, "Oh yeah, it's just this light," but other people were like, "What the heck? Why don't you believe me? Why are you like invalidating my claims?"
Right.
And so they want to have these kind of little walled gardens where everybody believes the same thing.
That's a good way to put it. The walled gardens. It really is a good way to put it, because that is what those communities seemed like, and that's one of the things that I found when I did that television show. I still harbored a few conspiracy theories before I did that show, but doing that show for several months and constantly interviewing people who believed in outlandish things, I found the same thing over and over and over again. Illogical people with very little evidence, believing things in almost a religious way. And I found it with Bigfoot, and I found it with UFOs, and I found it with chemtrails, and I found it with, it was just one after the other in varying stages of ridiculousness. I feel like contrails and chemtrails were the most nutty people. The UFO people seem to be the most reasonable, because it's the most reasonable theory out of all of them. The idea that we have spaceships, why doesn't someone else have spaceships? There's hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe, hundreds of billions of planets in each galaxy, the odds of there being some sort of a life form out there is pretty high. But there's nothing. That's the craziest thing. Like, the more I talked to these people, the more I went over all their evidence, air quotes evidence, the more I asked them why they believe things. There is nothing. There's not a goddamn thing that you can put on a scale. There's not a thing that you can weigh. There's not a thing that you can measure. There's not a thing that you can look at a photo and go, wow, that's compelling. There's not one. It's just an idea. And that idea is that there's something in the sky that flies around that we, either might catch if you're there, the right place, the right time, or not, and that they're from another planet. But
yeah, if you look at what's put forward as the best evidence, it's often like
it's nothing.
Cases from the 60s where there's an eyewitness who said something, like there was some guy on a road who says he blacked out and his car got messed up.
It's always that.
From the 60s.
Well, that thing that I know too much about psychedelic drugs, and I know about endogenous psychedelic drugs, the brain producing this chemical called dimethyltryptamine that happens when you're sleeping. Now, they've proven that this stuff is produced in the liver and in the lungs, and they believe they've got evidence that it's produced in the pineal gland. It's a very potent psychedelic drug that your brain produces, and your brain produces it during REM sleep. So these people, they all take naps, and during these naps, they have these crazy fucking dreams, and it's entirely possible that during these dreams, what happened is they got some endogenous DMT dump, whether they were under stress or whether they just had an erratic dump of this human neurochemical that entered into their bloodstream, whatever it is that caused it. All these fucking UFO abductions, all of them, like almost exactly happen at night. And they happen while these people are sleeping. Like, wouldn't you just assume that you were dreaming? Like, why wouldn't you assume you were dreaming?
Yeah, I used to have these kind of night terror hallucination things, which were kind of like that.
Yeah.
And it was always the same type of thing. It was like a giant spider coming down from the ceiling towards me. And I was like, frozen for a second, and then I would jump out of bed and turn on the light and look for the spider. And it's happened all the time. I knew because there was no spider that it wasn't real, but I could see if someone was having a different type of hallucination that seemed a bit more real, and then it came in between sleep cycles for them. Then totally, you can see because it seemed completely real.
Yeah,
I used to have them all the time, and it was always like it was horrible. It was this like giant, really realistic spider, and it wasn't like I was dreaming somewhere else. I was in the room, and I could see it like I was seeing something crawling across the table right here. It was this hallucination. I don't really get them anymore. I don't know what it was. My brain's fixed itself or whatever. But
it's probably a lot has to do with being young and confused, and hormones and nerves, and then also like your brain starts filling in the blanks. If you don't have a very good understanding of the universe, your brain, your imagination runs wild. It was very confusing to me doing that television show, and it really changed me a lot. And it changed me to the point that people started accusing me of being co-opted by the government. That the government threatened my family and told me to stop talking about conspiracies. And then the idea that I wouldn't say that if that was the case. Like, you don't think I would fucking tell everybody if someone threatened my family because I was talking about UFOs? I'd be telling everybody. I'd be like, hey, man. Yeah. I would tell all my friends. I'd be like, dude, they fucking threatened me because I was talking about UFOs. This shit is real. Hangar 18. Area 51.
I think there was a paper a while ago published like how many people it would take to cover up certain conspiracy theories and the probability of none of those people ever talking.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. Like, you can't have tens of millions of people in on a conspiracy about it.
What do you think happened at Roswell? Roswell's the one. That's the big one. July 1947. I think a UFO crashed.
Yeah, I think it's what they said. It was those balloons that they were using to detect Russian nuclear bombs in the atmosphere, and it was a secret program, so they weren't allowed to tell anybody about it. So they came in, they picked up the remains of the balloon, and then the story just took off.
That's a funny one, though, boy. That's made a whole town famous for UFOs. If you go there now, they have like alien-themed gift shops.
They're milking it. It's like you said earlier, like people make money out of something, and then they get stuck into that. So because they're making money out of it, they're motivated to promote whatever it is, if it's Bigfoot or if it's aliens.
Have you ever seen anything in all of your years of trying to debunk these things that made you question whether or not this was a legitimate phenomena?
What, the chemtrail thing?
Anything. UFO, chemtrail.
Thing with UFOs, there's always things that you can't explain. There are things that are unidentified, but there's usually plausible explanations for them.
Right.
I like to, whenever I'm given something like a mysterious thing, I like to list all the explanations that I can think of. And maybe none of them are a perfect fits that you can guarantee this is what the explanation is. But like it being like a ghost or an alien spacecraft as an explanation is usually pretty close to the bottom. Like you start out saying, oh, it's a balloon, or it's a bird, or it's a drone, or it's CGI, or it's it's something somebody faked afterwards,
right?
Or it's an alien spacecraft, or in between that, like it's something else that we don't know what it is.
Is there any evidence, like in terms of UFOs, that's interesting?
I haven't, to be honest, I haven't really looked into the whole sphere of UFOlogy. I know a lot of people have, but just looking at the quality of the best cases they put forward, like I mentioned earlier, like, some guy in 1964, like, got his car beat up on a road.
Right.
These are like the top 10 best cases, and this was like number 2 or something.
What about Bob Lazar? You ever looking at that guy?
Which was he like
Bob
a
Lazar
abductee?
supposedly worked at Area 51 and became a whistleblower.
No, I haven't. But a lot of it's something you see in the 9/11 community and in the chemtrail community is people kind of becoming celebrities.
Yeah.
And then they kind of start going on road shows, and they go to conventions and they speak, and then they write books, and then they start doing things, and they get sucked into their belief.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah, but I think that there's just very little that people really, the level of understanding that people have. Like, imagine the fact that we were fucking around with like nuclear bombs like 70 years ago. Like, no one even really knew what was happening. It's just like accidental, like just dropping them all the time in the ocean.
Oh yeah,
it's like fucking crazy.
The videos are insane,
dude. Nuts.
I showed them to a friend of mine the other night at dinner. Like, this is what it looked like. And you see the look on his face when the fucking mile-high wall of water comes out of the ocean.
Oh, my God.
It's so big, it doesn't even make sense.
The best,
like, holy fuck.
Right now we're talking about this Russian hypersonic missile. Like, can you believe this weapon that, like, Russia has? Like, I was like, wait a second. The U.S. spends like 10 to 20 times the amount of money on weapons than Russia does. We have all that shit. I mean, but the hypersonic missile, I mean... That's probably what those UFOs, quote unquote UFOs from the videos that were circulating a couple of years are just like, because those things are fucking crazy, man. The ramjet shit that, but it's crazy. It's like Art Bell, when we used to drive on tour back in the day, like it'd be like we'd listen to Coast to Coast at night. There's nothing else, but you could find that scary ass shit, and you'd be looking over like the, Arizona skyline, like looking for shit.
Driving in the middle of the night,
hearing
this
this.
Bell, that's some best.
And like around the time that's when Art Bell's like family got captured. Like, what the fuck is going on? And George Norrie would come on, and then they were talking about ramjets and all kinds of shit. Like, I mean, that shit. It's actually, I think the ramjets what the powers the SR-71. Like, essentially, like it takes a whole tank of fuel to get that thing just up and going, like Mach 1 or 2, whatever, and then they have to refuel it to get it like ramming, whatever. So, but like those.
So they refuel them in the sky.
Yeah, it takes a whole tank to get them where they need to go.
That's the wildest shit ever. Pumping gas in the sky.
Dude, if you see the potential of these hypersonic missiles, dude, they like without even a warhead, they have like a megaton explosion just from the velocity of the speed. They can go like Mach 15 or something,
and they can change course.
Yeah,
they can't just predict. Oh, this one's going to go to Seattle. No, it can turn left. You can go south.
You know that scene in like it's like Superman 2 where they have the ICBM and like he's like riding it, like dude, that's fucking insane.
I think you're right. That's probably a lot of what those UFO sightings were. I think a lot of the other ones are drones, like the ones like the famous one is that Tic Tac one that they found off the coast of San Diego. I think in 2004, Commander David Fravor saw this object that they had tracked. They even recalibrated their device apparently to make sure that it was accurate. But they read this thing at more than 50,000 feet above sea level, and it got down to 50 feet in less than a second.
Yeah.
And they don't know what it is, and they followed it around with their jets. And then the people on the Nimitz said, yeah, we've been seeing these for a couple weeks. These like super credible naval pilots. Guys who really understand like what's possible and not possible. And they watch these things dart off and just vanish with the kind of speed that like is just impossible. No propulsion signature. It doesn't like show that like anything's coming out the back like a normal jet. It just looks like a Tic Tac, and it goes at an impossible speed. Like, what the fuck is that? That might be a drone. It might be some crazy fucking drone that they've been working on for decades, just not telling us about.
Oh, for
when I saw the Pentagon was talking about UFOs, and they were talking about things from alien worlds, I'm like, yeah, really? Or maybe you guys have been making some cool fucking shit, and you don't want everybody to know.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah, it's not us. We don't have any hypersonic fucking UFO-looking Tic Tacs.
Back to Phil Hartman when he does the unfrozen caveman lawyer. He's like, I'm not familiar with your modern ways, this legal system, but I do know my client's entitled to $3.5 million in punitive damages. It's like, it's alien technology. We don't know where it's
Why would the Pentagon ever tell us? Because I always wondered, like, because Tom DeLonge, he actually like worked with the government. Like, they brought him in to talk about aliens because he's that much of an alien freak. Yeah. And I think they thought that would like help, you know.
Dude, he told me he was like, they're cloaked. They're all above us. They're cloaked, and they're scanning. And honestly, what he was describing was like satellites tapping into all of our phones and listening to everything we do, which is, I think, actually happening.
Yeah, but they don't even satellites to do that.
No,
they get right into the system. They can listen to everything you say. That's Gavin DeBecker, who's a security expert on my podcast, was explaining. They used to have a clickable link. It used to be a thing you had to click, and then you would accidentally, without your knowledge, rather download some sort of a software that would take over your phone. Now they don't need that. So now they just need your phone number. They get your phone number. They're just listening to you. They're watching everything you do. They can do whatever they want now.
Dude, imagine the stupid conversations that these people have to listen to.
Yeah, well, it makes more aware of how fucking stupid your conversations are if you think they can come up in a trial with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Oh,
like,
my God.
That kind of shit, when you realize, like, oh, my God, like, everything you've ever said.
And he's now reading, like,
text messages and shit.
The vessel I donated my jizz to.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Eddie said he was a CIA.
It was before Eddie was deep into conspiracies. Back then, it was like he was like into UFOs and shit. It was barely into conspiracies. He's way off the deep end.
So you got into UFOs, man. That guy, goddamn. Like, well, maybe it is true.
I'm scheduled to have a phone call this afternoon with George Knapp. He wants to brief me on all this shit. George Knapp is the guy that broke the Bob Lazar story in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And, he shares my opinion. He's like, most of this is bullshit. Most of these people are liars. Most of these people are crazy.
Right.
But there's some real shit out there, too. Like a lot of these Air Force pilots, they have eyes on this fucking thing that's going 600 miles away in a second, like dropping down from 60,000 feet to 10 feet, like in a second.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't know what the fuck this is. We have no idea how these things are doing this.
Right. And that's some hillbilly, like, just talking about Sasquatch.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, it's air pilots.
Yeah.
People who, they're trained to fly jets and have gunfights in the fucking sky.
Right.
These are exceptional human beings.
Yeah.
When they see things like that, you gotta go, they know what the fuck they're seeing.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Every day, you could go out there and look in the sky and you don't see shit. You go, there's nothing up there because you're not seeing it. But if you go to a fucking lake, you're never going to see a shark. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it doesn't mean sharks aren't real.
Right.
It's like you're looking in the wrong spot or you aren't there when they show up. But they're real. So we have enough accumulated data to know that, there are sharks. They are real, but they're not in lakes. They're in the ocean. Here's where they are. This is how you find them. Go to South Africa. Oh, look, there's a shark.
Yeah, let's go to Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah. Or fucking Catalina. Off of Catalina, there's a shit ton of them.
I worked at Boy Scout camp in Catalina, and I was teaching snorkeling. And that was like, the whole time I was shitting myself.
Oh, my God.
It's the nicest water in the world, though. It's so warm and salty. You just float,
We did fear out there a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, we did a couple of stunts.
Nice.
A couple of water stunts.
It's a cool. We stayed on the other side, like there's the hotels on the one side and everything. We were on the other side, the campsites. It was awesome. I was like 13, and I got so roasted. My entire body became one blister.
Oh, no.
Stupid. I was stupid.
No sunscreen?
None. Out there all day long. Yeah.
So I don't know if UFOs are real, but it's certainly believable enough. It's not like the sky's empty. It's filled with stars.
So do you now, after speaking with them, do you think we've had contact like that?
I tell.
Yeah,
because
but
they could have been
for
lying.
your own opinion, not for listeners, not for anybody else. Just you, when you're at home and you're chilling, do you think it?
I don't know. I really honestly don't know. I couldn't say yes or no. I'm more inclined now to think there's something going on than I was before I met Lazar and watched that documentary. Because I was on the, not that I was saying that aliens are not real. I think there's 100% life out there.
For sure.
Let's just say that.
It's too big.
Right. It just doesn't make any sense that there isn't.
Right.
It's the question of whether, the weird question. And it's also, the problem is that you feel foolish talking about it because so many people who believe in it are foolish. And so many people who tell stories, their stories are foolish. So you feel foolish kind of going along with it.
Right.
But I'm very careful about stuff like that because I'm like, just because something makes you feel foolish doesn't mean it's true. Or doesn't mean it isn't
wrong.
true. Yeah. So I definitely think there's a very high likelihood that there's life out there. And it's entirely possible that something's gotten here before. But as to whether or not something really has made contact with people, I don't know. If I would say, like, where's my scale, it's like probably 65% believe.
Yeah.
35% going,
Especially after talking to that guy.
Yeah. But he could have experienced something that was an experimental aircraft that they didn't want to tell him.
Right.
You never know, man. I mean, I just don't know what the tech. Look, I'm a moron. Like, I don't understand physics at all. I have no knowledge of propulsion systems or mathematics, and I don't know what the top of the field in propulsion experts are capable of today. I don't know. There might be some shit that they're working on that they've never really perfected, so they've never actually implemented it in the battlefield or something like that, but they have some sort of a drone that looks like it would be filled with 3-foot-tall people, like these aliens that they described. I don't know.
And they're not going to fill you in on that. If you think it's aliens, then fine. It's fucking aliens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what that was? I mean, they're taking this guy who was a physicist from Los Alamos Labs who went to Caltech, and they sent him to these classes at MIT to learn fucking nuclear shit, and then they try to see if he can figure out how to back engineer something. They try to say, that doesn't mean it comes from another world. I mean, it could have been a Russian thing. It could have been something that the Germans figured out. I mean, I don't know. But I'm more inclined to believe him than not believe him.
Yeah, he didn't seem like he was full of it, you know.
Exactly.
And just looking at him, he also seemed like he even wanted to be here.
He did. He was talking about it before we even got out here. It's like, I just got to tell you, I'm getting a migraine.
Yeah.
And like, Jeremy was trying to talk him into doing it. Like, we're going to be fine, George. I mean, Bob, this is important. It's really good to do this, and we're going to be able to really get the story out. But I think more people told me that they got more out of the conversation because it's just him talking, no spooky music, no edits.
Right.
And you get to see, like, he's honest about what he knows and doesn't know. And when he would say, like, what do you think about this? He's like, maybe, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, it's like, he wasn't a bullshitter.
He didn't rehearsed or full of shit, nothing.
No.
Like, what he was saying, if he didn't believe in that, at least to himself, what he was saying, I'd be fucking amazed.
And his story has not deviated in 30 plus years, which you can't, you try to have me tell a story of something that actually really did happen from 30 years ago, and I probably told it a bunch of different times.
I don't know what we started podcast with,
exactly.
you know?
It's hard, especially when my memory varies day to day. Like, some days it's awesome, and some days it's dog shit.
Yeah, it's crazy how that.
Yeah.
You've had a few concussions, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Same here.
Yeah.
I have horrible memory.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Well, that's a good thing. That's the more sensitive you are, though, the more you have to consider all the possibilities, and that's what could keep you up.
Right, or send you down the UFO wormhole. Right?
We talked about that right before the podcast. Yeah, there's this guy that's coming on. His name's Dr. Robert Schock, and he's a geologist from Boston University, and he's worked on. There's some real scientists that believe it's entirely possible that the Sphinx and a lot of the construction in Egypt is far older than they think it is.
I know all about this.
Do you know all this?
I know all about the rain runoff and how much erosion has occurred around the base or around the pit and it absolutely couldn't have been done, depending on like the way the Sphinx is built, where it's located, the siting.
Yeah.
Where its level is is far older. So
yes, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 9,000 plus BC, because that's when back then the Nile Valley was a rainforest and somehow or another became a desert. And this guy's, legit Boston University professor, geologist. He's traveling all over the place, but he's here for some UFO conference, and the UFO people wanted him to mention the UFO conference, and I'm like, fucking Christ with UFO conferences. You guys don't have anything. If you had something, it would be, what are you going to get together in a fucking Marriott somewhere and show some blurry picture of some fucking hubcap that someone chucked up into the air? Like, there's nothing. Everything that they look at falls apart under scrutiny. There's like a few videos.
Okay, I'm going to back on
Please
this.
Please do.
Let's just say, what about, do you know the Disclosure?
Yes, Disclosure Project. Yes.
Okay, there was their first press conference when they got all the, I tend to be impressed by the military, ranking members. I'm sort of like, if you were guarding missile silos and you say you saw something hover above it and deactivate, I'm probably going to check that out a little harder. And there were just so many people that stood up, in that press conference and said that they absolutely had seen evidence, met extraterrestrials, seen the crafts, like in hangars, etc.
Yep.
And to me, they didn't look like they had that much imagination. They're the kind of people that I didn't think could really. I mean, did you find that convincing at all?
No. Here's why.
No. They're just like a whole bunch of liars, a whole line
that's
of liars.
Steve, right? The Disclosure Project
it's
is
not
Stephen
so much
Greer's
about
thing.
him.
Yeah.
He doesn't appeal as much as the people that he brought on, who were mostly military guys.
The thing about military, anybody who's in the military is a person. If you get 100 people together, one of them's out of their fucking mind. If you get 1 million people, you've got a shit ton of people that are out of their fucking mind that are running around that want extra attention. One of the best ways to say one of the best ways to get extra attention is to say you've had some extraordinary experience that separates you from the pack. It's one of the main points of delusion that people that are really out of their fucking mind will want to point to. I see things in people. I can read auras. I can tell. I'm a psychic healer. I'm an intuitive person. They all have this thing that separates them from the herd without any work whatsoever. I feel like a lot of these people are that. They want attention. And so they tell these extraordinary stories. Now, when you said they're not creative, that's a very astute point, because they all have the same fucking story. Because it's the same story that's been going on forever. They just repeat shit they've already heard. Most of these people, I think, are full of shit. I think it is entirely possible that UFOs have been here. Entirely possible that people have seen UFOs. Entirely possible. But a lot of those people, my fucking bullshit radar just goes off. Bang, 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 bang,
really?
bang, bang, bang. Yeah. I've talked to too many of them. When I did that television show, Joe Rogan Questions Everything, and I met with UFO people and Bigfoot people, I was telling you before the podcast, it cured me. Because I got to be around those people for hours and just talk to them with no cameras on. I'm like, oh, you're fucking crazy, or you're delusional, or your way of looking at things is not objective, or you're talking to me because you want to convince me of something. You're not just communicating the ideas that are actually in your head. You're pitching me some sort of a speech. You're like, you've got some sort of a performance you're doing for me.
Oh,
and I smell it. And as a performer, I smell it. I'm like, this is nonsense. You're telling me nonsense. They would tell me, well, you want evidence? I'll back a truck up and show you the evidence. I'm like, where's your fucking evidence? You don't have any evidence.
You should have brought it today. I mean, like, well,
exactly.
Here's the thing. Did they seem off kilter in everything else they talked about?
Yes.
Okay, so they
everything.
did. That
Relationships, jobs, they're all screwballs. They're almost all screwballs. The people that are most convincing are people that see these orbs flying around.
The pilots.
Yeah. Well, the reason why they see these things is there's a real phenomenon called ball lightning. It's absolutely real. And it's caused by various weather conditions, and they think that it can even be caused sometimes by the right weather conditions and the shifting of tectonic plates, that somehow or another the friction. Yes. And that these ball lightning, if you've ever seen videos of it, it's phenomenal. It just flies around. They've even had it inside airplanes. Somehow or another, ball lightning has shot down the aisle of an airplane while it was in flight.
I've actually seen it.
Have you really?
I've actually
Where have
seen
you
ball
seen it?
lightning on a flight that was struck by lightning.
Whoa.
It was pink. And it sounded like a giant BB gun hit a tin can. Oh, yeah.
Whoa. You were in a plane that was hit by lightning? Holy shit. That's intense.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Shows a different kind of thing.
Yes.
How many different kinds of things are you aware of?
Well, those are ours. Two. If you look at the
gimbal.
Go Fast, it kind of looks like a Tic Tac. So you could say those two are the same. You know, I think there's other stuff out there. You know, and sometimes it's not that you got to look at where do you obtain the video. It's just like intelligence, you know. And I'll use, because I know you got that picture of Pablo out there, you know. And there was the guy, Tom Cruise made the movie about him. What's his name? Louisiana dude who was flying the drugs for Pablo in and out.
Barry Seal.
Barry Seal. You know, hey, it was all great until Reagan posted that picture that they had the cameras inside the cargo plane, and then Pablo puts it together. The only place that picture came from is Barry Seal's airplane, you know, and then now Barry Seal's a dead man. So you got to watch when you release, because you go, hey, we got this video, but it was taken someplace we probably weren't supposed to be. Or how did they get that video?
Right.
Like, I'll look, the video of the Tic Tac video, that thing first came out. It's kind of funny. The guy that was in my back seat had sent me an email, and this is about probably 2008, so I was retired. And he sent me this video. He said, "Skippers, this look familiar?" And it was on strangeland.com, when not suitable for work. I'll just say that. But I look, and then next thing you know, it's on YouTube. So when I would tell this story to my friends, I'd send them the link to the YouTube video. And this is years before the New York Times article. And then when they did the unofficial official report, the video was taken down off of YouTube. And, you know, it kind of puzzled me, like, why'd you take the video down? And I told the guys when they did the unofficial official report, I said, what you really need to look at is how did this thing come off of a classified drive system on an aircraft carrier and end up on strangeland.com and YouTube? Because at the time, the videos were classified secret. And that's not because it was a UFO. It's the AT FLIR video. They did not want that released. So you'd see it on CNN. They blocked out all the performance stuff of what the airplane was actually doing. In this case, you know, the one you see, it's 250 knots with the autopilot on, so it's not that big of a deal. But, you know.
Jeremy, how many types of vehicles are you aware of that have been reported?
Credible reports for decades, hundreds of different shapes. Even Lazar himself said he saw, 9 different styles, all working off the same propulsion system. The Tic Tac shaped, vehicle, that goes back in history. Some people say cigar shaped, big ships, small ships. They're all different kinds. I think it's important to state, though, there are other government-funded UFO programs. It's a misnomer, actually, that ATIP was the recipient of the $22 million. It was actually Harry Reid created a program called OSAP. OSAP was the sole beneficiary of that $22 million. New York Times got it wrong. And then what happened is ATIP was a different funded program to study military encounters with UFOs. OSAP was created because of Skinwalker Ranch, a government program to study UFOs and associated phenomenon. ATIP and OSAP communicated and shared information, but they were independently funded. So the $22 million was for OSAP, and then ATIP had its own sources, and then they did collaborate. 2 UFO programs. There are more that I think we're going to learn about.
So the different shapes that Bob Lazar saw, there was 9 different shapes that he saw.
Yeah,
the
saw
hangars.
9. Only one up close, yeah.
And none of them were like the Tic Tac.
Not specifically. However, that's not an uncommon. If you go back in history of like military sightings of craft going maybe 1,000 miles an hour, the Tic Tac is a shape. They have triangles. They have ones that look like rectangles. The thing that is common with all of them is the non-reactionary propulsion system. I think even Commander Fravor said the thing noticed him, was words he first said to me, and kind of went towards him with its nose. But it could move in any direction, right? I mean, it could just move at will, however
Yeah,
it
it was
wanted.
when we first saw it. It was just basically, it never turned. It was just going left, right, kind of doing this.
Shape
like
probably
this pen.
doesn't matter.
And then it became aware because it turned and it actually mirrored what I was doing. When I was coming down, it came up and, so it was obviously knew we were there. And I don't know if it was picking up, energy coming off the airplane or what. I do know that when they tried to lock it, it actively, it jammed a radar, made it pretty much useless. And, Chad was pretty good about kicking it over and grabbing that video. So it's pretty wild.
It's a big deal to actively jam a radar,
Yeah. It's, whenever someone tells you an awesome story, it's great to hear. But, God, I wish I saw it myself.
Yeah,
it's
but
like
you
this
got
thing. It's like,
yeah.
You're telling me, and I'm like, wow. I'm listening. I'm trying to imagine. I'm putting it in my head. I'm visualizing it. But damn, I wish I could see it.
Joe Rogan Experience.
With Grush, I think, here's my take on it. I think he believes what he's saying, right? I think he has gone out there. I think I'm legit. Like, he was a 14-year veteran of military and National Reconnaissance Office, and I think he went out and he talked to enough people, and he believes it. I don't think he's out there like spinning a yarn and is worried that now he's gotten over his skis and he's said, too many things, and now I don't know. I don't feel like it's tidy, and maybe the difference between us is I spent a lot of time with the government, and the government is sometimes can be really, really dysfunctional, and it goes back to keeping a secret. The idea that they could have this what essentially is a covert action campaign, to spread disinformation about what they actually know, right? When the easier thing to do is just to have the program, if it's the U.S. government's development of technology, right, and we're doing this, to have the program and just keep your yap shut about it, not go for a disinformation campaign, not try to muddy the waters by doing this, because in a sense, you're just creating more conversation around it. You're creating, now there's a little bit of a, movement within Congress to say we have to do this. Now we have to. So they're going to look perhaps for a misappropriation of funds, right? Because they're not going to pursue like the UAP issue necessarily, right? But they might be interested in pursuing misappropriation of funds. So if you're running a program, if it didn't, again, going back to the idea that it's a U.S. government thing, if you're running a program, that's the last thing you want to do, is because you're doing this program to avoid government oversight. You're not going to create this alternative narrative that, could generate the sort of publicity or the conversation, particularly up on Capitol Hill, that causes them to then start looking and saying, well, where is money being spent?
Right.
Right? Because there is a trail there, and that could
Right.
cause a problem. Yeah.
What are your instincts when you look at it? If I'm looking at it, I'm saying something's wrong, it seems like bullshit. What are your instincts?
Yeah, I think I would like to, I don't think we're going to get there. But my instinct is to say, how do we solve this, or how do we come to some sort of logical resolution, as opposed to saying what is it right off the bat. My instinct is to say, all right, if the all domain anomaly resolution office has 800 cases, then tell us what those 800 cases are. Let's work our way through them, or have a little bit more transparency about working through those cases. Again, you'll probably whittle them down, right, to – I mean, we were doing Black Files and we were going around talking to people about, various sightings and things. You're basically just crossing things off, going, okay, that was this, that was this, that was this. You find some pretty mundane answers, but you whittle it down to maybe one or two things that you can't explain, and then you can investigate those and say, okay, well, all right, let's dig further on these. But right now it's just like all over the map, and they've got so many cases, and they just kind of lump it all together. Are they doing that to obfuscate and create, this situation where it does seem like bullshit? And I don't know, but I think I'm not willing to shut the door on saying that those handful of those few sightings that where we do have technical data, we got video, we got radar lock, we got gun camera footage, whatever it may be, that can't be explained. I'm not willing to close the door and saying, well, it's is it, because who knows? Maybe China's doing the same thing. Oh, we're leading the hypersonic race right now, great, but they've got another program, and they were responsible for the Tic Tac, right? So we have to pursue it, and if that leads us to the doorstep that says, oh, that's a U.S. government program and they've developed the technology. Okay, fine, but I realize that, I'm not willing to close the door on saying it could be something else. It could be otherworldly, right? Because I just don't know.
It could be.
I just don't know.
There is
who knows?
The infinite nature of space, which seems to actually be getting bigger.
Yeah, there was a way of putting it that my wife, who's a hell of a lot smarter than I am, tried to explain it to me, and I kept looking at it like this. But she had heard a program at one point where the person explained it like, okay, imagine how vast the ocean is, right? and how we've explored the ocean, but then you look at space and how immense it is, right, compared to the ocean, right?
Right.
The amount that we've explored in space, right, is equivalent to like a wine glass full of ocean water, right? So you take a wine glass full of ocean water, you look at it and you go, there's nothing there, right? There's all those life forms, there's all those fish in the sea. It's kind of like that. And then, you think about space and you think about what we know and what we don't know and how we imagine, like our limited capacity to imagine what life outside of Earth could look like.
Right.
So yeah.
But when you hear talk of like crashed retrieval programs.
Yeah. That keeps taking me back and is, to this whole idea of if there was a crash retrieval and reverse engineering program like David Grush talked about and had been in existence for decades, somebody would have fucking opened their yap and talked about it. I think
other than Bob Lazar,
and they would have had some better specifics, right? I mean, that's always the thing. It's always where it falls down. Well, I haven't seen it, but I talked to somebody who knows that it exists, right? And I think maybe it's because we're human, we're programmed to actually want physical evidence, right? We want to actually see it before we believe it. But that really hasn't happened yet.
What's one of the things that's fascinating is the narrative has shifted so wildly from it's completely preposterous to credible people like David Fravor and Ryan Graves and all these different people that are talking about multiple sightings, things that completely defy our understanding of what a vehicle is capable of doing, hovering completely motionless in 120 knot winds, all the whole, whatever that thing is, the cube inside a sphere that they keep seeing over and over again.
Right.
Like,
almost hit one of the aircraft.
Yeah.
And,
the fuck is that?
Yeah. And then they land. So I think, one of the good developments out of all of this, and one of the things that may eventually lead to transparency, right? Because it will provide an avenue for these sightings, whether it's commercial or military pilots, as an example, to report it. Right, and to be more, and for the government to take it, perhaps, again, it depends on whether it's a big conspiracy or not, to investigate in a more logical manner and in a more detailed manner. So I think just again the sheer act that we're talking about it, which then takes me back to the idea that if you're running a secret program, you don't want people talking about it, so you're not going to muddy the waters with a false narrative if you don't have to.
Right.
If your concern is that someone's getting close to the truth and you got to do, okay, then maybe so. But,
Do you think it's also possible there are patriots that do think that the American public deserves to know about this information and they have been sitting on it for a long time? That people like David Grush and all these various that are coming out and more apparently are wanting to come out.
Yeah. Well, interesting thing with Grush is, look, he said so during the hearing, right? He said, I can't talk about that. I could talk about it in a skiff, right? In a sensitive, secure environment. All right. Well, if I'm, one of the people on that subcommittee, I'm going to say, to my staff, schedule, a skiff meeting with Grush. Get him in here. Mm-hmm. And let's, have him talk classified shit.
Right.
So that would be the next logical step in all of this.
Have they done that yet?
I don't know. I mean, it's,
when he said I could talk to you about it in a skiff, have people taken him up on that?
Well, you'd have to ask him. No, I wouldn't know.
Right, and they wouldn't tell anybody.
And therein lies part of the problem, because if he sits there but if he sits in the skiff and continues to kind of say, well, okay, I don't, you guys aren't clear to hear this, and I can't. All right. Then you got to start questioning, what he's actually got or what he knows for sure, rather than just having this witness interviews and sort of secondhand information. But I'm much more, I guess the point is, I'm much more interested in the direct sightings than witness interviews, right?
Right, and the thing about he's not really a witness, right? He hasn't had any personal encounters with anything. Right. He hasn't had personal encounter with a craft. He hasn't seen a retrieved craft. He hasn't seen the biological entities. These are all just programs that he's been made aware of that he felt like people needed to know about. That's the narrative.
And again, not to disparage anybody, right? I mean, look, he's, if in fact, somebody leaked his medical records, which it looks like, did happen, right? Then that's pretty bullshit. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to figure out what the hell is happening
let's see
there.
this. The information from Grush, who's unable to discuss specifics on what he told the Pentagon's watchdog arm. Lawmakers want to sit down with the former official in a sensitive compartmented information facility, a SCIF, to get additional information from him. The group has been blocked, however, by officials that have informed them that Grush doesn't currently have security clearance to discuss the issues in a SCIF, according to Burchett. We think that we'll get there eventually. It's just frustrating. I'm ready to go, and the American public are ready to go, he said. Luna argued that the SCIF with Grush could help lawmakers better understand the type of legislation they need to write regarding UAPs. She said she supports legislation that would declassify information on the phenomenon. So there seems to be some issue of secrecy and what possible to discuss or legal to discuss.
Well, yeah, look, the government casts a very wide net when you're talking about classified information, right? I mean, the government has overclassified information for decades and decades, right? And you've got secret, top secret, code word, and they tend to just hoover everything up and classify it, right? And then it takes fucking forever, right, to go through that process of declassification. And because nobody wants to put their neck out at that point and say, yeah, let's declassify this, right? Once it's in that pot. But the question is, great, you're saying, you can talk about it in the SCIF. Well, damn it, then that's the next. That's what the subcommittee should be doing. Right? That's their job, right? If they're curious, right, and if they're sincere about trying to get to the bottom of this, and that's theoretically their job, then they should. Because again, going back to the main thing, and people can say, well, why are you wasting your time on this? But you can always circle back to the top line, which is it's for national security purposes. We want to know what the hell's going on,
right?
And if so. Yeah, we'll see. I guess that's the question that should be thrown at Grush, or should be thrown at the subcommittee members.
I'm also shocked how few people care. I feel like people are so overloaded with information today because of social media and because of the news cycle. People are so overloaded with information that this barely registered on people other than UFO nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there was a surprising amount, I thought anyway, of sort of mainstream media coverage. It wasn't particularly deep, right? It just kind of covered, okay, it was a hearing. And I think they did it because, look, it's UFOs or UAPs, right? And so, they knew they'd get some clicks on it if they were putting it online or whatever. And they didn't pursue it, like has been any, I haven't seen any stories that talked about the follow-up with Grush. There were a couple of stories talking about the fact that perhaps his medical records were leaked, as a result.
And the medical records showed what? That he had some sort of a psychiatric condition? That he had an event or something like that?
PTSD, I think he, some suicidal depression issues.
Standard stuff with military veterans.
He had done his time in Afghanistan, right? And so that doesn't, it means nothing, and except for the fact that it shouldn't be out there, right? The records should be damn well private.
Well, not only isn't that what we want, why don't you shut your little dinger off there, fella?
Is that me going?
Yeah, that's why your phone rang,
too. What the hell? God,
you got to learn how to use that little switch on the side. But
thank you for my IT lesson.
Isn't that what you want from? I mean, that's the whole purpose of providing these services for veterans. That when they do have suicidal thoughts and they are struggling with PTSD, that they get help. I mean, the idea that they're shaming him and saying that his report is not credible because of this seems ridiculous.
Bullshit. Yeah.
It's totally bullshit.
Yeah, and he said he's come out since and said, look, I did help. I'm in a better place. And he was happy that people were talking about it. They should be talking about it. Look, we lose a shocking number of veterans to suicide, right? And it's disgusting that we don't, that the government doesn't work harder at this, right? And spend more effort. I know a couple of people who do amazingly good work at the VA in terms of counselors, right? They're not managers, they're not executives. They work with the veterans every day, right? And it's incredible what they do. But overall, as a government, our assistance, right, to veterans. I mean, you look at the number of homeless situations. It's pathetic. And so when he talks about it, it's good that he's talking about it, right? I think that transparency helps, and he clearly views it that way too. And he said, look, I don't have any problem with discussing it, but we should be concerned by the fact that somehow his medical records were put out there. And then, some people will look at that and go, well, is that the government's effort to discredit him? Or is that somebody's effort to discredit him? I don't know why anybody else why would you do that?
You believe in UFOs?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah.
See, I believe in there's other life forms out there,
Yeah,
but
that's what
I
I believe.
don't think they're coming here.
They might. Here's the thing. Right. Well, why not think it? Just because here's one thing I do believe. Most people are full of shit when it comes to like most of their stories. Like it's hard to find a person that could just tell you what happened based on what they really remember. People want to jazz things up and they want to add salt and pepper.
Yeah.
They
Had
just
sex with me, did this, did that.
They don't necessarily tell you the truth. They tell you what they think is going to be an engaging story that kind of represents the truth, maybe. Especially when it's a weird thing like you saw something in the sky. What did you really see? How long did you look at it for? How many seconds was it?
Well, I mean, the problem I have with UFOs, and I believe there are UFOs, but I don't think they're coming here.
Why would you say that?
Because that means first of all, if they're coming here, that means their technology is way more advanced than ours.
Right.
So why would they care if people saw them? They would show up, if I was an alien and I was that far ahead of us, I would land that bitch right in the middle of Times Square and be like, what? We are here.
But why would you do that?
But why wouldn't I?
Well,
why
for
am
a
I
couple
hiding
reasons.
in fields where nobody can see us?
Are you aware of how we treat uncontacted tribes?
Yes, to a point. But,
to a point.
But what I'm saying is, if you're that far advanced, they know. If they're coming here, they know. They're way smarter than us,
right?
Because they've traveled here,
right?
And we don't even know from far distances we can't even imagine. And they're here. They don't have to hide. It's
But
just
do you
like
think they do it because to hide? Or do you think maybe they do it because we can't handle it? Because we can handle it.
Why would they care if we could handle that?
Because here's the problem. Whenever a civilization has ever encountered a civilization far superior to them, the results have always been catastrophic every single time. Every time Europeans have invaded North America, every time the Spanish visited the Mexicans, every time that this has happened, it's been a disaster. And this is human beings. If there was something that came down here from another planet and was so unbelievably sophisticated that it could travel through vast distances in space and had insurmountable, impossible technology, that we would look to it for all of our answers. It would become our new daddy. It would completely disrupt all of our governments. It would disrupt all of our religions. It would disrupt every single belief system we have. And people would fall apart. They wouldn't know what to do. Psychologically, it would be devastating. Look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, but I know most people would not be able to handle it.
I understand that. Why would they care?
Because
that's my whole point. Because they care about
because
us.
it would be affecting our culture.
But
they care.
But why would they care?
We care about animals, bro. There's a reason why we have wildlife protection agencies. We have that because we care about animals, and animals don't even know we're a thing. Okay, if you're a deer living in the forest and you're 2 years old, you might not have ever even seen a person. You don't even know what the fuck we are. But we're trying to keep those deer alive. We spend billions of dollars every year protecting them. We do that because we care about wildlife. If we cared about a rare monkey that we found in Indonesia in the forest, some strange monkey, we would do whatever we could to make sure that monkey's populations thrived. If there was a way to help them, I mean, that's one of the reasons why zoos exist. They take rare animals, they try to breed them in captivity, but
we're also share same Earth.
Well, then maybe they look at the universe that way, and maybe they look at civilization. I mean, our civilization's a very dangerous one because we're a bunch of semi-hairless monkeys with nuclear weapons. I mean, we're fucking nuts, bro.
Oh, yeah.
And we're obsessed with sex. We jack off to our phones. We're taking pills to keep our dick hard. We're all on speed. I mean,
we all have ADD.
I mean, and we lie. We lie about shit. We lie about things that people did to us. We pretend people did worse things. We pretend that we didn't do things to people. We lie about stealing. We lie about money. We lie about all kinds of things. I mean, people are
so
crazy.
You're thinking aliens are thinking about all that before they come down.
Of course they would. Why wouldn't they?
Because
why wouldn't they?
I guess I'm coming from a human point of view where we don't give a shit about anything.
But here's the thing, that's not true. We do give a shit about things. That's why when you go to the Galapagos Islands, you're not allowed to take your shoes that you walked around Los Angeles and walk around the Galapagos Island. Because people have done that, and they've gotten seeds from their shoes stuck in the sand over there, or the ground over there, and then new plants grow that are invasive species. We're worried about ecosystems. We really are. That's why humans... That's where we're worried about invasive species.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
So What year was your incident? And you have a very, very famous incident that's corroborated by actual evidence, which is one of the rare ones. What year was it, and where did it take place?
So it was 2004, November 14th. It's really, if you draw San Diego to Ensenada, Mexico, we're about 60 miles off the coast in between the two. We're doing workups, so when we get ready to deploy, this was for the 2005 deployment. We were going at sea for November and December of 2004. So we had been out. I had just taken over the squadron mid-October, so I'd been the CO for a month. So we go out and we're putting the battle group pieces together. So it's not just the air wing, but we're on the carrier. We've got the cruiser. We've got all the support ships out there, and we're going to integrate all the defenses and train as one unit. So the exercise that we're going to do is an air defense exercise where there's good guys, bad guys. They're all from the air wing. So the bad guys today are going to be the Marines, VMFA 232, the Red Devils. So they're going to launch, and they're going to go about 100 miles south of the ship, and we're the good guys, and we call it a 2v2, so it's two of us against two of them. And we're going to work with the USS Princeton, which is going to be the controller, and they're going to control the blue forces, and then the red guys are going to give us a presentation that, they're going to try and intercept so we can stop them from getting up towards a carrier. So that's kind of the training set that we're all good. So the Marines take off first, and they start heading to the south. Now, we have no idea that for 2 weeks, the 2 weeks we've been at sea, they've been tracking these things coming out of the sky. And when I talked to the Princeton controller, he's like up to about a dozen of them. They would come down from above 80,000 feet. They'd drop down to about 20,000 feet. They'd hang out, and then they'd go straight back up after about 3 or 4 hours.
Now, when you say you've been tracking them, who specifically?
The Princeton was tracking them. They saw them on the Nimitz radar, and the E2 could see them. Because they're out there, that radar's on all the time. And the Spy 1 system on an Aegis cruiser is, the state-of-the-art. It's probably one of the most sophisticated systems in the world.
So typically when something like this happens and there is some unexplained phenomenon, what do they do?
Okay, so if we were in a threat environment, they would tell us. But we're off the coast of San Diego. It doesn't come to the air wing, so we have no idea that these things are out there at all.
So they observe these things, and they never bother telling any of you guys.
That's correct.
So they just knew that these things had been visiting this area,
yes,
but they just allowed this training exercise to take place anyway.
Yeah, talking to them, for the 2 weeks, they would show up, but it was when we weren't flying. So the typical carrier schedule is, for us, it was about noon to midnight. It's a 12-hour day. There's reasons for that. It can go a lot longer. But for training, we just do the 12-hour day thing. And it's cyclic ops, so you got guys taking off and landing periodically. So we were on one of the first goes. It's noon, 1 o'clock, somewhere around there, and we take off. The Marines take off first, and my buddy Cheeks, who's the CO of the Marine Squadron, he was leading the Red Air. When he launched off the carrier first, they called him up and said, "Hey, what do you got on board?" Well, the original legacy F-18s don't have as much gas as the Super Hornets. Super Hornet's about 30% bigger. So they start talking to him about fuel, and based on how long we're going to be airborne and everything else, they go, "Hey, why don't you just go ahead and proceed to your cap point?" Because we had just taken off. And that's when the controller had come up and said, "Hey," I forget our call sign. It's probably like dealer is usually what we went. So that'd be like dealer 11. This is Princeton Control. What do you got? Say your loadout. And I kind of chuckled. I said, well, I got a CATM 9, which is basically just a blue metal tube with a seeker head for an AIM-9 IR missile. It's a training. It doesn't come off the airplane. You can beat it with a sledgehammer. That's the only way you're going to get it off, or you got to unlock the lugs with a key. So I'm like kind of chuckling. He goes, "Well, hey, we're going to cancel the training." So we're like, okay. He says, "We got real world vector, and they're going to send us out to the west." So picture if it's, if you got a clock, the Nimitz is in the middle. We're a little bit south of that, about 40 miles south, and then the Marines are about 100 miles south of the ship. About 60 miles between the two of us. So as this is all happening, my wingman is joining up. And these are F-18Fs, so there's two people in each jet. So it's me and my Wizzo, which is weapon systems operator, and I've got the other pilot and the weapon systems operator in the other jet. So they tell us all this, hey, we're going to real-world vector, and they send us out 270, about 60 miles away from where we're going. So now we're going out even further out to sea. We have no idea what we're intercepting, and this is when the controller starts talking to us. He says, "Hey, sir, we've seen these objects. For 2 weeks, they've been coming down," and he's giving us the whole story. He says, "We need you to go investigate. We want to know what these are."
But they're asking to investigate in a jet that's unarmed.
That's cool. And there's reasons for that we don't fly. We typically don't fly with live ordnance unless we're actually going into like a combat zone or we're on a training range and we're going to shoot something. And the reason is you can go through history of the Navy or Air Force. if you put live missiles on airplanes and then you start doing training where you're squeezing the trigger, someone always messes the switchology up and someone gets shot down. It's happened multiple times. So we don't do it. There's times that we do, but it's rare. So we start flying out to the west. Now I want you to think, because the other pilot has when you talk to, it's out there, it was a female. When you talk to her, here's the kind of goes through the mindset of, hey, we're off the coast of Mexico, real world vector. We have no idea what we're going to look at. Probably drug runner, because you get the drug runners coming up the coast. So we're like, okay. So we drive out, and they're calling down ranges. So they're telling us, hey, it's 270 at 30 miles at 20,000 feet. And it's, and then you just count down the ranges. And we're talking back and forth the whole time. So they get out to a point where they say, hey, merge plot, which means radars have resolution cells, range and azimuth of what the radar can actually see. Once you're inside that box, you can't tell the difference between me and the object I'm going at. We're just become one big blob. So they call merge plot, and so the other jet is on my left-hand side, and I'm going to go to a clock code to make it simple. So the object we're going to end up looking for is right in the middle of the clock, and we are at the 6 o'clock position. And my wingman is off to my left side, so she's further down with her Wizzo. So as we're looking around, we look to the right, and there's yesterday was a perfect example out here. The water is perfectly calm, no white caps. I mean, it's literally a perfect San Diego, California day. And we see whitewater, something like if you see a seamount, rock underwater when you're standing on the shore and the waves are breaking over it, and you're like, what is that? It's usually because there's a rock under the water. So it looks like that, but it's about the size of a 737. It actually kind of has a shape of like a cross, and it's pointing to the east. So you've got the long part going east-west, and you got a couple of things going north and south. So as we're looking at it, because that kind of draws our eyes, we're like, oh, that's kind of odd. We look down, and the Wizzo in the other airplane comes up and says, hey, skipper, do you? And that's about what he gets out of his mouth. And I'm kind of looking at the same thing. I go, dude, do you see that? What is that thing? And what we see is this white tic-tac looking object just above the surface of the water, pointing north-south, and it's going north-south, east-west. It's just radically moving forward, back, left, right at will. And it's moving around the disturbance, the whitewater that we see.
How big is this thing?
So, over time, it's about 40 feet long. And the way I estimate that is, I got a lot of time fighting other airplanes, so it's about the size of a Hornet, fuselage. So that's why I say 40 feet. And this thing's just going left. So the first thing you see when you look down, you go, and this is with our eyes, it's not sensors. Right, so we're looking down at this thing, and first thing you think is helicopter, right? Helicopters typically stay below 200 feet when we're out there, and they're just driving around. We're pretty far away from the ship for a helicopter for one of ours. So what is it? So the first thing you look for is rotor wash. If you've watched any TV show that starts kicking the water up, and you can see that it's really easy to see from the air. So we're like, no rotor wash. Matter of fact, don't see any rotors. Don't see any tail rotor. Don't see any, the main rotors. Are like, that's kind of weird. So as we're driving around, we're looking at this thing. We get to about the 9 o'clock position.
How far away are you from this thing?
I'm at 20,000 feet, and it's right down on the surface, right off our right side. So I'm probably maybe a couple miles lateral and 20,000 feet, and we're just watching it move around. And
so it's very small eyes.
Not overly small. An airplane down that low, it's 40 feet. You can see pretty well. It was pretty clear. So I'm like, okay. So I said, I'm gonna go check it out. That's what we're trained to do. The other pilot says, hey, I'm going to stay up here. And I'm like, that's perfect. So now we'll get some separation. We'll get it from different views. And the other airplane will kind of have a God's eye view of everything that's going on as I go down and check this thing out. So I start driving around, and it's still doing its forward, back, left, right. It's still pointing north-south. We get to about the 12 o'clock position. I'm just in a nice, easy descent. And a reason, because I've been asked, could you go more aggressive? You can, but when you're out over water, the water looks the same at 20,000 feet as it does at 2,000 feet. You don't, so you can easily put yourself in a non-recoverable position if you're not paying attention and you go into the water. So I got this nice easy descent. I get to about 12 o'clock, and as I'm coming down, I could guess probably about, 18,000 feet now, a couple thousand feet below the other airplane. The tic-tac just kind of rapidly goes boop and turns, so now it's kind of pointing east-west, and now it mirrors us. So it's above the surface, we're up high, we're coming down, and it starts coming up. I'm like, well, this is getting interesting. So we kind of drive all the way around a circle. I'm descending, it's coming up, and I get over to about the 8 o'clock position on the clock, and it's over at about the 2 o'clock position. Well, the quickest way, as we know as kids, to get someone, you can keep going around the circle, nothing's going to happen. You cut across the circle. So I'm about, probably 2,000 to 3,000 feet above it, and I just kind of drop my nose aggressively, and I cut across the circle, and it's coming this way. It's because I'm trying to fly to where it's going to be because I want to join on it. I want to see how close I can get to it.
Right.
And as I'm pulling up, it's kind of starting to cross my nose, and it starts to accelerate. And within about less than a second, as I start to pull nose onto it and it crosses right in front of me, it just goes poof, and it's gone. So I call the other airplane, and I said, hey, do you guys see that thing? And they're like, sir, it's gone. We don't see it at all. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. So we don't see it. We're looking. At the same time, I say, hey, let's turn around and let's go back to see what was in the water. You know, was there something there? So we turn around. We're right there. We haven't gone anywhere. It's gone. Water's perfectly. There's no white water, nothing. It's just blue. We're like, okay. So we turn back around. Now we're heading back out towards the east. And I tell the controller, I said, I first said, I'm kind of weirded out. And I told my backseater that. And we start heading back, and the controller on the Princeton comes up and he says, sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is back at your cap point. That was our original point where we were going to hold 40 miles south of the ship. So this thing has went from wherever we were at to, about 60 miles in, maybe 30, 40 seconds. It's already over there. And and they didn't track it. It just appeared. It shows back up on their radar and they go, it's here. So we're like, okay. So we fly back. We don't see it. We don't see it on our radar. We don't see it on any of our sensors. We do like 2 runs and we come back to the ship and land. So as we're in we call it the PR shop. We're taking off our flight gear. One of my crews is getting ready to go out, and I think they were going to be on a tanker mission, but they had a targeting pod on board. So they launch off, and we're telling them about this before, and the backseater, Chad, says he's really determined he's going to find this thing. So he tells the pilot, hey, we're going to find this thing. So they're just out driving around, and in the back seat of a Super Hornet, there's no stick, but there's side stick controllers, and they're to control the sensors, because that's what the weapon systems guys do. And they can change displays really fast by just hitting a button, and it'll flip from the radar to the targeting pod. And the way the system actually works is when you see something on the radar and you designate it as your primary target, all the other sensors will look at that point. So everything is kind of synced together. So he picks up a hit on his radar, and he goes to lock it up, because I've watched all the tapes. He goes to lock it up, and immediately the radar can tell, it gets signals back that it's being jammed. So, and technically jamming is an act of war. It starts jamming the radar, goes into a jam extrapolate, a bunch of stuff happens on the scope. Well, he's smart enough to castle to his targeting pod, and he takes a passive track, and that's the video that you see of the Tic Tac, where it's just sitting in the middle of the screen real quiet. So he does that, and he goes through. If you watch the video, if we had it, I'd go through it with you. But they go through all the different modes. So he goes, it's an IR and an EO. EO is TV. It's black and white TV camera.
We can get the video right online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's get the video, Jamie. Where would you? Can't show it to anybody. We can't show it on YouTube, but you can see it, and people will be able to go to it. You know what we'll do? Go to the video. And we'll tell people when we're starting, and we'll tell people what the title of the video that you get to is, and they can sync it up themselves if they're watching it.
It's publicly owned. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's publicly owned. It's American government released
Right.
it. So it is actually something in the public domain.
So you think we could play it on YouTube, get pulled?
Yeah.
100%.
You think so, Jamie?
It's a government.
Those things, yes, we should be able to. But sometimes those things get messy, so
let's take a chance.
Okay,
let's take a chance with this one.
Okay. I know if you find a New York Times article, there's a link to it.
It's a Pentagon release.
YouTube is crazy with copyright stuff, and we've always been like 2 steps away from getting pulled off of YouTube completely. It's a real disaster. I understand from their perspective. There's a lot of legal issues they have to deal with, but
I have it on a private server. I could maybe send Jamie.
The issue, I believe, though, is the actual copyright of the video itself.
Oh, it's a Pentagon
released public domain.
And the Pentagon's going to come after us.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Did you find it?
Yeah, I want to find a good version of the video that doesn't have somebody
Jeremy,
else's
do you know?
copyright.
Yeah, I've got a watermark version. Let me just look it up and send it to you.
Tons of
Jeremy will
watermarks
get
all
it
over
to us.
I have to figure out how to send it to you right here. Give me a second.
Do you have? Could you airdrop it?
Yeah, but I got it on
a
page. I got it on a page, private page. I can send Jamie.
Oh yeah, okay. Do you have Jamie info?
No.
Yeah,
send it.
I'll write it down.
Okay, I'll figure it
or
out.
Or you can send it to me, and I'll send it to him.
Okay,
that's pretty easy. Sorry to disrupt the momentum.
No, you're good.
But I think it's probably important to be able to have this the video itself, so you could just talk about it. And we're about to yank it up here. Okay, Jamie wrote it down for you. There you go.
Give me a second to get it up.
Okay. And for people who don't know, Jeremy also produced Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers, and he was in here when we had Bob Lazar in, talk about Bob's experience, and Jesus, if that wasn't a game changer for me and for a lot of other people. This is a subject that it's so easy to mock. You know, this is why I think it's so important that we talk to people like you, because, like I said, just your average everyday UFO crackpot, they believe everything and anything. Had you ever had any UFO experiences before this?
No, the irony, I tell this story. My mother-in-law, she'll be listening. She literally, every time I would go home, she would ask me, hey, did you see a UFO? Did you see a UFO? And I'd be like, no. And when I first started dating my wife, she was a big National Enquirer. She had all the supermarket tabloids, and I would always just feed her crap for it. So this happens, and I never say a word. So my friends all knew it was a great story over beers because they'd go, hey, what's the coolest thing you ever saw flying? I go, I chased a UFO. And they go, get out of here. I go, no, seriously. And I tell them the story, and they're like, dude. I go, yeah. So I go home, and I got asked by Lou Elizondo to do the New York Times article, which, as like anything else, I always say no. Like, it took a bunch of times to get me on your show. Jeremy kept asking, and it was...
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, you got to thank my contractor's wife, Angel, we were at a party drinking, and she goes, you got to do Rogan. I go, what? She goes, it's the biggest podcast on the planet. She goes, you got to do it. And I go, all right, I'm going to do it. Just for you, I'm going to do this show. So
shout out to Angel.
Yeah, from New Hampshire. So my mother-in-law, we're sitting there, and I know the New York Times article is going to come out. And so it was at Thanksgiving in when the article came out, 17. So it was Thanksgiving in 2017. And everyone had kind of left the house, so it's just my wife and my in-laws. A couple of us sitting in the kitchen. And I said, hey, I got to tell you guys this. They said, what? I said, there's going to be this article comes out in the New York Times, and I'm in it. And they're like, yeah. I go, well, I chased a UFO. My mother-in-law's like, ha-ha. She looks at my father-in-law. He's rolling his eyes, looking at me like, oh, are you serious? And I go, yeah, oh, yeah. And she's like, you never told us. I go, I never really told anyone. I mean, my wife and kids knew the event happened, but they didn't have all the details because it's just one of those things I just didn't get into.
Is it classified?
No.
Or was it at any point in time?
No, there's a lot of rumors out there that it was classified and the ship locked down. No, it wasn't. It was, men in suits did not show up. No one told us not to talk about it. And this is because there's a lot of other people saying other things. And I said, look at it. Here's the context. So in the battle group, you've got the admiral, you got the captain of the ship, the captain of the Princeton, and then you've got the other COs. So in position-wise, I'm probably, as a CO of a squadron, in the top 20 out of 6,000. And no one came to talk to me. No one came to take my tapes. No one showed up in a suit. No one told me not to talk. No one talked to any of my air crew that were involved in this. There were 6 people total involved, the 2 that shot the video and the 4 of us that looked at it for 5 minutes with our eyes. Nothing. It just, and I can get into how, there's a report that George Knapp got released. I call it the unofficial official report. And I had met someone, and I'm like, hey, can you find anything out? I had this incident. And normally you tell people this, they look at you like, dude, what are you smoking? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm tested. And they go, and they said, well, let me see what I can do. And I had got a call. I was doing some aerospace work, and I had gotten a call on my cell phone from a guy. And he said, hey, I want to investigate your incident. And I go, okay. So he did. He investigated the incident, and it was very, very thorough. I mean, if you've read it's about 10 pages long. And he tracked down everybody. He tracked down all the people that were the air crew that were involved. He tracked down the admiral. It was a pretty thorough report. And I didn't think anything of it, because the people word that's out there, so they want to do FOIA, but it was never released in a FOIA request. I actually had the Navy call me. I'd been out of the Navy for like 6 years. And
let's explain to people that means freedom of information.
Freedom of information. So I got called by a public affairs person from the Navy and said, hey, is this Commander Fravor? And I said, yeah. And they said, hey, do you know of any documentation on your UFO incident off the Nimitz? And I said, official. And she said, yeah. I said, no, because I knew the report existed, but to me it was an unofficial because I didn't know where it went. And I had a copy of it. but because it wasn't official, well then years later I find out that the guy who actually did the report was part of the ATIP team, and I was talking to Lou Elizondo, who runs that program, and Lou showed me the documentation of the original. I think it's like 13 people that were part of ATIP, and they were FOIA exempt. And I'm like, well, that's kind of, well, hey, I know that guy. He's the guy that did the report, which is why it never ever came out until George got his hands on it.
How's the Freedom of Information Act exempt?
Obviously, DOD has the ability, because I'm not a conspiracy theory person at all. I mean, I'll just tell you that. And I think there's reasons that the government doesn't tell the public everything. And I don't speak for the government, but I think there's a good reason for that not everything needs to go out to the public. But most of it does. And what they do is they put a clause on, hey, for this program or whatever we're doing, which would have been an ATIP program, the work that they do and what they find it's not releasable through Freedom of Information Act. There's probably other avenues to get that. And then you go, well, what really is freedom of information? Because I got into this I was talking to someone who's a conspiracy theorist, and they said, well, so-and-so wrote, and they're not getting any information on your event. I said, so what are they going to do? They're going to call up, you're going to put in your request for freedom of information. You go, here's what I want. It goes to some poor guy at the Pentagon who's like, I have no idea what this is. And he searches around. He doesn't find anything. He looks at his bud, and I go, for you. I go, hey, Joe, you got anything on the Nimitz incident? And you go, nope. And I go, okay, well, I didn't find anything. I looked. I did my due diligence, but I'm not going to spend the next 6 months of my life doing your research project for you.
Right.
So and you get nothing, and then you assume the government's covering up when the government really isn't. They just, the guys doing the research doesn't know where it's at or doesn't have access to it.
Sense. Jamie, we have the video? Okay. Here we go. Now, explain what are we seeing and why are we seeing it in this particular
Okay,
shade?
so we'll just kind of go around. So if you look at the OPRs operate on the top corner. NAR is narrow field of view, which is zoomed in. IR at the top middle, it means it's in infrared mode. So instead of seeing color, you're seeing temperature variations. Okay. And these things are extremely sensitive to in like tenths of degrees. They will tell you the difference to color. So it'll go from black to white. So in case white is hot. So if you look down in the bottom left corner, it says WHT. That's white. That means white is hot. So the object that you're looking at is hotter than the sky around it. But what you also notice is there's no plumes. Now, if you're looking at an airplane, when you get closer, you'll actually see the exhaust coming out, and there will be a really glowing plume. That's important as we look at the video. And then most of the stuff on here you really don't need to know. What you can look at is the bottom right corner. It says 19,990 and a B. That's the altitude. And if you look up in the little words where it says HDG and then LT, it's autopilot. So it's on altitude hold. It's just flying for that. So you can go ahead and play the video. And so those two bars next to the white object, that's a passive track. So what he's done is he's commanded the FLIR to track that. So the system does is it uses, it's actually tracking, it can track pixels, and it's just basically block those hot pixels, those white pixels from the black ones. And then you're going to see now, pause it real quick. So up at the top, see it went to a white screen with a black object. This is a black and white TV mode. And if you look at the top, it says TV. So narrow in TV mode is actually, you can get closer than narrow in IR. It's literally narrow in IR is about medium in TV mode. So you can get closer with the TV mode. So as you look at it now, in this case, you would actually start to see stuff going on. And even in TV mode, because you get exhaust, the black exhaust that comes out, you'll usually be able to see kind of some of that coming out of the back, and you don't see anything. This thing's just sitting there. And if you look at the top where it says 3 right, that's the pod is looking 3 degrees right of the nose of the airplane, right? So he's just flying along. The bottom numbers, don't worry, those are time. So it's 41:56. So go ahead and hit play. And what he's doing is Chad's going through all the different modes because he's like, oh, I got it. And he's going to try and see the best video that he can get. Now, there's rumors that this video is like 10 minutes long. No, what you're looking at is the entire video. Now, notice where it says 99.9. So hit pause real quick. What that means is while he's got the pod, the targeting pod, because that's his primary sensor right now, the radar is still trying to look at this object and trying to range it, and the radar can't get ranging on it. So the object is doing something to say, I'm not giving you back, because it's just a Doppler radar, just like a police radar is a Doppler. It's trying to get a ranging on you, and it can't do it. So when it says 99.9, the radar cannot see this object right now. It's not allowing it to get ranging.
And I think that's super important the way he explained it to me. Active jamming compared to passive jamming. This is a technology that is actively jamming this system.
Rather than like stealth aircraft, which is the shape and the texture of the...
Yeah, it's... Because everyone thinks stealth is invisible. It's not. It's a technology to basically make it harder for radars to see you. And that's the whole thing. If you look at airplanes that are nose on are harder to see than airplanes at the sides. Kind of like, think of a barn door. If you're looking at the whole barn door, it's really easy to see. If I turn the barn door sideways where it's really thin, it's going to be a lot harder for you to see it.
Got it.
So that's the easiest, most basic way to look at this. So keep going. You can play again. And you can look, the airplane is still sitting at 20,000 feet. It's doing 250 knots. He's going to go through different modes and try and lock it. And it's just kind of sitting, and all of a sudden, as the video goes on, I think it's a minute and a half long. See, it's going to try and reacquire. It recenters the pod. So it's slowly drifting to the left. The Hornet is still going the same heading, just kind of hanging out, and they're just filming this thing. And then when they get close, it's going to zing off the left-hand side. When you see it on a full, because this, you think digital, you'd be able to get a one-for-one copy. Unlike, when you copy your album to a cassette, you lose a little quality. Well, you still do in digital world, and off it goes to the left, and that's pretty fast to leave that field of view. When we have big monitors that we look at these when they come back, so we're looking at the original tapes. So
play the end of that again, please, Jamie. So when it's taking off, how fast? When it just leaves the field of view and takes off to the left, how fast is that going?
I would say fast. It's an estimate. If we had ranging, you could obviously do the triangle and go, hey, because we know how big the field of view is. But for something to leave the field of view that fast with the pod just staring is pretty fast. I mean, it's like out of here.
Like nothing.
No, because we can't. I don't care what airplane is. So let's just use the F-22 Raptor. That's probably it's probably the best airplane in the world right now, performance-wise. It can't take off like that, especially if it's a hover. I mean, you're talking something that's just sitting in space in the wind, and then it just all of a sudden accelerates. Airplanes don't work that way.
And it's not an exhaust plume.
Notice there's none. And when you go back to the IR
at the end,
even in the IR,
see, there's IR zoomed in, and there's no. You would see a plume if that was an airplane.
It's creepy how it takes off.
Yeah.
With jamming, it's intelligently controlled. There's no rotors, there's no plumes, there's no exhaust, there's no tail fin, there's no tail number. This thing goes from a standstill, takes off. It's a propulsion system we don't have in our inventory, and no other nation does. That's how it's understood by the government.
Now, so if the fastest plane on Earth was trying to do that same maneuver, this system would be able to track it?
It would stay with it until it got to the limits of the pod, as far as looking to the left. But
right.
And the radar would see it. I mean, when you get close enough, you're gonna, everything becomes visible because you get burned through with radar and how radars actually work. This one is, you tell me, but this was performance beyond. I mean, it's like when we saw it disappear when it flew in front of my nose. I mean, I'm talking something. I'm within a half mile of it, looking at it, and it gets in front of me and just disappears. So we'll just go to something that everyone knows is fast. Let's just say SR-71 that's doing Mach 3. The visibility is 50 miles. So even at 35 miles a minute, I'm going to be able to see this thing turn into a little dot as it goes off into the horizon for probably a minute. The thing that we saw disappeared in a second. Just gone. And that's from two different angles. Remember, the other airplane's 8,000 feet above me because we get close to it at about 12,000 feet. So the other airplane's above me looking down, and when it disappeared, I said, "Do you guys see it?" And they said, "No, it's gone." It just literally was poof.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Let me ask you this one then. What do you think about all this, the Pentagon saying that there's crafts that are coming from another world?
That's New World Order.
What do you think that is, though?
Getting people to believe in the fake alien invasion.
So what do those things are these people keep saying?
It's probably, who knows? The Nazis were scaring their people with UFOs. They made UFOs, and they were scaring people. It's like look at the timeline.
The Nazis were trying to develop some kind of an actual flying saucer,
and
right?
They were scaring people, and they were using look, we're going to save you. Look, UFOs. They were scaring them. The government's going to save you from the UFOs, right? So 1946, World War II's over. 1946-47, Operation Paperclip. That's when we took a bunch of Nazis, and Russia took a bunch of Nazis, and so 1947, Roswell. Right there. Roswell was the beginning of the UFO craze. Right after Roswell, all these comic books, Mars Attacks, in the 50s, all these shitty-ass space movies and alien movies. There was Star Trek came. But Roswell kicked it off. That was the first one that kicked it off. So like, wow, that's 1947. That's right when we brought in all the Nazis. Who knows, man? Maybe them Nazis were like, dude, you guys aren't scaring your people with UFOs. You dumb motherfuckers, just get on it. Boom. So that Roswell, like, they just take some craft, and then they get the people that they interview probably think it was real. Like, dude, it was a crash.
So you think it was an orchestrated crash just to freak people out?
I think
that
so.
seems like a money talk.
Oh, you
cover it up and hide it?
When anything too expensive? When is anything too expensive for the government?
But the official answer was never that it was a craft. The official answer was that it's a fucking weather balloon, and everybody believed that.
They
showed that.
But people that believe in UFOs, like myself and you, back in the day, I no longer. I have a different view of UFOs now. But back then, we didn't care that they said, like, the fact that they said that, oh, it's just a weather balloon. We were like, oh, dude, you guys are bullshit, and you're trying to cover up the real shit.
So they're playing 3D chess.
Exactly. So that's what I think.
So you think it's drones? I'm of the opinion.
Drones, and you know how there was a little red laser point? You know, you fuck with your cat with that shit? You go, tsh, tsh, it's incredible speeds.
Yeah, but there's some stuff. Like the Commander David Fravor one is pretty impossible.
For sure they're seeing stuff. Like, I think Bob saw some shit. Yeah. I think they set him up. That's what I think. I think he's telling the truth, but they set him up. That's what they do. That's what William Cooper said. He was set up too. He worked for the Office of Naval Intelligence, setting up meetings, like high-level meetings, he said he thinks that he was setting up meetings and looking at documents going, oh shit, they're going to be discussing crash UFO shit and reverse engineering crash UFOs. So at first he believed it. Then eventually he realized, oh, they set him up.
So they set him up so that he'll talk about it.
He thinks they set up due to talk a lot, big mouths that are drunks. That's what he thinks. They set them up and they fucking, and that's what he
set them up, big mouths that are drunks because they know they're going to give out the information.
And they want them to talk.
So they get in there. They let them see it. And
they go, don't go in. We'll be right back. Don't go in that room. We're gonna go. And then they go in. They see like Philip Corso. Remember that guy? From the Pentagon back in the day when I was into all this shit, I would like, look, dude from the Pentagon is saying it. Of course it's got to be true. Dude, a Navy pilot is saying it. Of course, they're the most credible. You're like, but now looking back, I'm like, dude, now of course it's the dude in the Pentagon. Philip Corso said, he wrote a book the day after or something. He wrote a book about how he saw the bodies in the coffins. He saw the bodies. He goes, I was there. I saw the bodies. I mean, so either he really saw alien bodies, like he walked in a room and they were in a casket and it was an open casket or something like that. Either he really saw that or he did see it and they weren't real or something and he was set up.
Imagine
they set him up.
Fucking crazy diseases would come from an alien body. Can you imagine they would just have an alien body in a room and you could do an autopsy on it with one of those stupid masks on?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Just stop and think of that. Because think about like the Europeans that came to North America and killed 90% of the Native Americans with smallpox. Imagine what the fuck aliens have. Imagine what shit that is in there. If they're a biological creature, they probably exist like we do. We're filled with bacteria. We're filled, like there's more E. coli in your gut than have ever been people ever. We're filled with this stuff. Mm-hmm. Imagine what kind of crazy diseases some alien body would have that you have no immunity to. Yeah. No, and just ravages the population and everyone's dead. And these guys just have these little stupid masks on. They're cutting into this alien.